everyone, and welcome to our knowledge transfer sessions. My name's John Erickson. I'm here with my friends at Sound Team Realty. You are?
Jesse Paulson with Sound Team Realty.
And Fletch Newland, also Sound Team Realty.
Perfect. Well, today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, actually, a topic I've been running into more and more. So I'll kind of start it with this. I deal with retirees or soon-to-be retirees most of the time. And one of the things that happens is they go to sell their home that they've been living in for years, right?
A few years, yeah.
A few years, oftentimes, right? You've raised maybe kids there. This might be time to downsize, but it's a home that you've seen the siding start to go a little bit. You maybe replaced the roof. The carpet, it might be original or might be replaced once. But we say things are dated, right? And the problem I oftentimes run into with these clients is they will tell me, well, I can't sell it because it's too dated. I need to do X, Y, Z. I need to put a certain amount of money into it before I sell it. And part of that, I think, is because they don't have the experience of the buying and selling process. Like,
Sure.
They bought the home at one point, but they haven't done it a lot. They don't always know what a buyer's looking for because they don't put themselves in that many people's shoes. And so I thought it'd be good for you to talk through some of the common, well, these are the things you might want to fix up. These are the things you probably don't need to do. And maybe the concept, you don't need to necessarily spend that type of money. Some of the thought process around that. Does that sound good?
It sounds great. And I think we actually just experienced this situation this year down in Renton. And it was clients that had built their house or had the house built, they moved in. So they were the first owners in there. And it was immaculate, no doubt, when they bought it. But it absolutely was dated when they were going to sell it. And so we sat down with them and we said, well, let's go through each of the rooms. Let's go through all of the property, all around the property, and let's talk about it. Now, you had mentioned roof. They had just had the roof replaced, and that is a big plus. We'll talk about that in a moment. But we went through each room, and we said, well, it would be good to do this. Don't spend your money on this kitchen, and don't spend your money on this. It very much is a case-by-case basis.
Absolutely. That's the key. There's not a one-size-fits-all.
Right.
And so ideally, get with somebody who knows what they're doing, an agent with lots of experience potentially. And that might be the best because you don't necessarily want an interior designer because it's not something that you're trying to figure out how to make it better for when you're living there.
Right.
You're trying to optimize your house in the market and its position in the market to sell for the best you can. So it's all about return on investment at that point.
That's an interesting point because actually one of the things I mentioned, I've referred a couple clients to agents or brokers because I'm trying to go, hey, before you spend this money, this could be 5 to 10% of the entire sale price, this
Right.
fix up here.
Right.
Before you spend this, make sure you get another side of perspective on this. And it doesn't cost someone anything for someone to come in and make some suggestions, right? Like,
It shouldn't.
just asking, like, if someone asked you.
We don't charge,
Right.
and we feel that the service that we provide will allow the seller to make the decision that's best for themselves to sell the home. And we don't charge for that advice up front. And we don't feel that advice, you should be paying for that advice. You should go out and see what will my house sell for on the market in this current condition, and if I were to do upgrades and all of that stuff. But no, that's not something that we feel you should be paying for as a seller.
You need the information. However you get the information, because to go and spend some big amount of money on your house to get it ready for sale when you're not sure what money should be spent or where the money should be spent. If you have to pay for it, but just get the information before you go spend a bunch of money.
That's a good point. I guess you could pay for an interior designer or something like that. Sure, you could pay for that.
But again, I think the interior designer is more for, okay, we just bought a new house, help us
Yes,
figure out how to maximize
agreed.
what we've got, as opposed to, we just need to figure out how to sell it for the most money we can. And there are so many things that were, like you mentioned, a kitchen. One of you just mentioned a kitchen. When you move into a house, you can almost never go wrong by doing up your kitchen. It's one of the places that everybody knows has some of the best return on investment. But if you are doing it for your house that you've just moved into, you're going to do it to your liking, your style. You're going to be very, very happy there. You get your benefit right off the bat, and then it's been updated. At this point, you can look back. It was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. That's better than if it were 40 years ago. You're on your way. But when you're going to make the big decisions, that may not be good, well spent money, because if you're a seller,
yeah.
If I'm really a fan of this style, and so this is going to really look ritzy, And all my buyers, later come in and go, "What is this monstrosity?" You've wasted your money. So spending at the right places makes sense.
And I'll also add to that, and obviously in agreement with that, I'll add to that we commonly refer to homes that are move-in ready and just ready, dialed in, ready to go as cream puffs. They're homes that you as a buyer can move into and not have to do a darn thing if you don't want to.
Just pop it in your mouth,
Exactly. So if you've got a kitchen that is outdated or in need of lots of love, you could put money in there, and yes, the sales price would go up. But to Fletch's earlier point, the return on investment. We want to make sure that your return on investment, if you're putting in $50,000, we want to make sure that we do everything we can to try to get you $75,000 plus more on the sales price, right? You don't want to just put $50,000 in to get $50,000 back, because you're also spending that time, your mental anguish of having to figure all of this stuff out. So the money has to be invested wisely.
All right, and so if we talk at the top end, right, so we want to invest the money wisely, and we're going through the common things that you're probably going to want to fix up in the house. Like, okay, these are your low-hanging fruit that you should almost always plan on doing if you're going to try and maximize value versus investment, right? What would you say your top 3 or 4 are, if you can?
Roof would probably be the first main one, because it's never not going to be a good thing. It's always going to be.
Especially here, where it rains.
What?
Yeah,
I know.
If anybody's watching any of our collective other videos, we've talked about this stuff in some pretty good detail. But people are hesitant to move into a house that has safety issues, and that can be perceived as a roof that is failing, or a roof that it's not yet, but I'm not sure if we're going to make it through this winter. Right. Or that there's massive amounts of mold upstairs in the attic.
Organic growth.
Yes, the M word we try to avoid typically. Yeah. But it's, and even still, though a roof is almost always a given that yes, it's a good thing to do. Should it be a 30-year composite? Should it be a metal roof? Should it be, my goodness, based on the look of this house, it has to be X. And, so it's still always worthy of a discussion and really thinking through the process. But that would be the first one I would say is usually a good bet.
Yeah, roof for sure. I would say that if the water heater is near or at the end of its life is one. Furnace could be one as well, because those two things aren't necessarily a personal choice. Those are function items that need to be within the home for that next potential homeowner. So, we're really dealing with the structure of the property, and we're dealing with what makes it comfortable to live in.
Now, are we talking more like failure versus nearing end of life,
Great
right?
question.
Because like a roof, right, once I put it on there, it's now nearing towards failure, right?
Absolutely.
And so, and same with the furnace or hot water heater, right? If it's clearly leaking, okay, it's nearing failure, right? But maybe it's not leaking and it's just old.
So, great question. And a lot of that has to do with is how is the buyer going to be purchasing the home? Are they going to be getting a loan? If they're getting a loan, are they getting a VA loan? Are they getting a FHA loan? Because those are much more strict. So the roof, for example, if we are nearing the end of the roof's life and there is moisture up in the attic or organic growth up in the attic, that could trigger something with the lender that says this house isn't right for them to be able to put a loan down on. So really, again, case-by-case basis.
It is almost always.
Water heater, if it's failed, get rid of it. If it's nearing the end of its life, our suggestion is leave it, because we don't know how much more life it has.
My last water heater lasted, 35 years or something crazy?
Yeah,
where every year it's like, there's no way it's going to survive. And finally I ended up putting hardwoods in my house. And guys are like, that ancient water heater, you better change, because if it breaks, all this money is wasted. So otherwise, everything is case by case once again. Yeah. Systems become one of these things of, okay, systems should be safe, right? If it needs new plumbing or new electrical, well, maybe. Electrical, for example, how are you going to do it? Are you going to put everything up to current code and have an outlet every so often now? Or are you just going to... Exactly. You're just going to fix what you've got. Once you get started, just doing what you think makes sense may or may not end up making a lot of sense. And okay, so I've just spent $10,000, $15,000 to get the basic minimums done, and the new owner's going to come in and go, well, clearly we've got to go through and completely redo the electrical. Well, that $15,000 really was wasted then. Right. So everything becomes let's look at things in their entirety, and let's look at the neighborhood where the house is.
Yes.
Are we in a neighborhood where everything is gorgeous? Well, that's probably going to have a bearing. Or are we in an area, and what's the cost of the house? Is it a $300,000 house where there's really isn't expectation that everything is going to be perfect? Or is it a $2 million house where it bloody well better be? There's just so many things that come into the process.
All right, so I mean, a lot to go on there, and you know, we're talking about safety and systems, but what would you say the ones that you probably are not going to want to do? You don't normally get your value back doing this. You know, what do you want to avoid?
Well, if we're talking safety and systems, you know, again, if the water heater is still functional, I wouldn't replace it. You know, right. That's if the you know, if we've got a panel that is older and it's not one of the big brands that have had recall issues, but it's older, you don't need to do anything with that. You know, you start kind of getting into the weeds a little bit with knob and tube. That's some of the older houses that we see over in Seattle, for example. You know, is there an oil tank underground? Right. You know, those kind of things. So it's really, what you ask is a hard question, because again, we'd have to go.
Great question.
Yes. Great question, hard question. We have to go get our eyes on it to see what makes the most sense. And really, what you need when you're getting ready to sell your home, you need an advocate in your corner that is not going to try to spend all of your money. They're going to say, okay, let's sit down and let's come up with a plan. And let's get these things, let's get 3 bids on this, 3 bids on this, and let's see how much that's going to cost. Let's look at the comparable homes in the market, in the neighborhood that have sold or are on the market or are pending, and make sure that we're lining ourselves up appropriately with all of those. So it's definitely not a one-size-fit-all thing. It is very much, it's a big spreadsheet.
Got it.
Your favorite.
I love spreadsheets.
And if I may, one of the things that we really like doing is to both go do this kind of a thing, this meeting at somebody's house together. Right. Because though we do tend to approach things very similarly, there's always enough caveats, enough ins and outs, enough possibilities that one of us is going to key on something the other hadn't thought of, and vice versa. And then we come away and we hash it out, and we you know, defend your position. Let's figure out how we think we're going to go about things, our best recommendations, and then we go back to the client and say, okay, based on X, Y, and Z, here's what we suggest to you.
And that's an interesting point. You know, we talk about this entire process. So I would argue that someone needs to be comfortable having a professional in their home, and here's what I mean by that. You've lived in your home for a long time. You might have, my wife would call them unmentionables, I'll call them underwear, you know, on the ground in a certain spot. But you might have dirt in certain areas, right? You may have pets that have chewed up something. It may not look as
peed on the floor.
Right. And so, like, you're professionals. You're going to come in. You're looking at this professional eye. You're not judging someone.
No.
Basically,
oh, heck
right?
no.
Right.
Such a good question, and it's one of the most common things we get. Is I'd really like to have you come over and do exactly what you're talking about doing. I just can't have you come over and see this right now, because you're just gonna, you know, the non-said part is you're gonna think I'm terrible. And exactly as you suggest, we can look past. I mean, we don't deal with it all the time, thank goodness, but we've dealt with hoarders and everything else. Yeah. So the scale of where they think that they are, and like, I can't believe my house looks like this, probably is not nearly as bad as what we see on a regular basis.
And it doesn't matter. To us, it doesn't matter.
Right, I get you.
We're looking at the structure, where you leave your underwear on the floor, or where you see dirt or something like that. That's got no bearing for our first meeting or second meeting. Now, when we go to put the home on the market, we're going to ask you to remove the undesirables or unmentionables, whatever those might be. But at the beginning, no. We have seen a lot.
That's fair. Well, good. Well, I think there's a good just kind of overview. And my concern with this topic especially was that, I said I deal with a lot of retirees or soon-to-be retirees, and they're about to spend by a percentage of their home, significant amount of money trying to fix something. And I'm always like, do you know what you're really needing to fix up here? Like, do you understand what you're doing?
And who are you fixing it up for? If you put the money into it, let's say you put $50,000 in, you're putting it in as you would want to see it. Right. Or as you're thinking that a buyer would want to see it. But buyers don't necessarily want to see that. So you might make it nicer, but is the return on investment going to be there? And that's not just dollars and cents. That's, you've got this demographic of buyers. And if you change it one way, you might lop off this demographic of buyers that are going to come in, and then therefore you've got fewer potential buyers to look at the home.
You know, it's interesting you said it that way. If someone put in hardwood floors in a home I was going to buy, I'd be like, I actually like luxury vinyl plank better. Like,
Yeah.
Sure.
I actually do. It's
Sure.
it's more durable for my life, right? And I mean, think about that. That's a basic. Oh, hardwood. Everyone wants hardwood. I'm like, oh,
Or shade
hardwood.
carpet.
Right. Well, that's
And it's a
good old shade
completely
carpet.
legitimate point.
Yeah.
Carpet is one of those things. Well, okay, if it's gross, and chances are we
That's
might
a good
well
point.
recommend we put carpet in.
Right.
But if it looks okay, it doesn't. It needs to be changed. But it looks okay, then we might just stage around it,
Right.
and people will recognize. Okay, I'm going to want to change carpet, but it's not gross and gives you this.
The heebie-jeebies.
Exactly. You need to avoid that for when a potential buyer comes in. But it may, in some cases, may make absolute sense to change out the carpet. In other situations, no, it definitely doesn't. Don't waste that money.
Yep. There's, again,
Depends.
case by case.
Yeah. All right. Well, last little bit, and then we'll let people go for this video, basically. I really appreciate you guys coming in and doing.
Glad to
this.
be here again. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
But anything else you'd recommend? Around this, I'm going to put some money in a home. What should I? Any last tips or tricks you basically have?
If you're concerned about a home that you've been living in for a long time and you just don't know what's under the hood, for example, get an inspection. If you get a professional inspection on the home, you spend somewhere between $600 and $1,000 depending on who you use, and get that inspector in there. That inspector is going to be able to tell you, here are the things that a potential buyer or a potential future homeowner is going to be concerned about.
And while that is in so many cases a brilliant idea,
But the hard part is, on the flip side,
there is a flip side to that where I was completely ignorant of what I just now have come to find out is a big issue, material
Right.
defect.
Right.
And now I'm responsible to tell everybody who comes in
Disclose.
that I didn't know before. So it's
There's
a great way to go.
pros and cons.
I would say if you're really unsure of what to do, start going to open houses.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Start going to open houses
Yeah.
and look at when you walk into a place and go, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
Versus,
yeah.
I don't know why, but I
Gross.
don't like this.
Yep.
And it'll become clear, and once you do a few of those.
Well, I think it was a good topic, and I appreciate you guys giving the time today.
Absolutely.
So once again, my name's John Erickson. I run a retirement program next to Overlake Hospital here in Bellevue. So if you ever want a personal financial planner, I'm able to be reached out to, and you guys are?
Jesse Paulson with Sound Team Realty and Remax Northwest. I'm over in Seattle.
I'm Fletch with Sound Team Realty as well. I live on the east side. I'm an east side guy for a very long time. But we kind of go where people need us, so let us know what you need.
Yep.
All right, well, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.